Hey, what's up? Dizzy Nuts here. How you guys doing? Okay, so today we're going to actually show you something a little different, and I'm going to show you how I did an image that I posted a couple days ago, which is actually this one. And this image was one that I composed of actually 3 different images to be able to make the final result that you see here. Now, a couple of you guys asked me how was it that I did it, and I'm going to show you today. Okay, so the first thing I want to say is that there's many ways to do this. I am not a Photoshop expert. This is just the way that I found out how I can build these type of photos, and I know there's probably a whole bunch of science behind the Photoshop stuff, which I do not know. But again, this is how I build it, and hopefully the steps that I used you can use to do your type of composite shots. So okay, so the first thing that I looked for was obviously you got to have the idea before you actually go into what you're going to try to tinker in Photoshop. For example, I saw on Pixel Bay a photo of something similar where they had like the ripped page, and I said, oh, that'd be cool, something like ripping off a scene behind it. And I said, that looks really cool, and I said I want to try it. Now I like to approach these things trying to get a grasp of what tools do I need to be able to do it, and what things I need to be able to grab from my utility belt, if that's the way you want to call it, to be able to build this image. So I knew that I needed obviously the 2 images, and I needed obviously the image as well as the castle with the fireworks, and I needed obviously the paper being ripped. So as for the paper being ripped, you can find anywhere on the internet. I was able to find, you can find ripped paper, or look Photoshop ripped paper, and I was able to find one image which was pretty straightforward, which is this one. And I was able to rotate it and, basically move the stuff around to be able to make the image pretty much as wide as I wanted to be able to post on top of my photo, like the one that you see here. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, and obviously, is be able to get all the images. And the tricky part here is actually getting the images to somewhat line up in a certain way. Now, do not go crazy trying to make them line up all the way through. Just try to make them line up on where the intersection of the paper being ripped is being done. It'll be much easier, trust me. Like that final image that I showed you, even though where the intersection of the 2 of them cross looks good, the top of the castle, there's one actually that's skewed inward and it looks a little weird. But since I'm going to be covering it with the second image, I really don't care about it. So again, just try to make sure that the parts that are intersecting, that show on the borders of the paper being ripped, is which is what's actually aligned. So don't spend too much time going on crazy, like trying to line all the way to the tip of the castle, because at the end of the day, it's not really not worth it if what you're going to do is actually just show one image. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is obviously we're going to put all these images inside our Photoshop, and we can put them as layers. And you can see here I got the bottom layer, which is this image, which is funny. It was actually taken in 2014, I think it was 2014. I took this image. It was actually no, this one actually was taken in 2018. And it was a show that was being done on Main Street for the UK, and they actually removed the flagpole. So I got lucky and took this shot. The other shot that I have that I'm going to be merging is this one, which was one that I took actually in 2014, and it was funny because that night they didn't have the flagpole either, which was pretty crazy that I got those 2 images. And then the third image that we're going to be putting together is this one here, which is the one of the castle with the fireworks going off. Now notice that they're all 3 different images and all 3 different years, and so it's going to be fun to merge these all together. Now I loaded them all as individual layers inside Photoshop, and the ordering, if we're going to put this in the layers, is obviously very important. The first one starting on the bottom with the image that is all the way on the bottom. Now if you know how Photoshop works and you've seen my videos before, when we're talking about layers, Photoshop will start showing the stuff from the top down, and then using mask, we can actually say what we want to be able to show through that image to the image underneath it. So the final image on the bottom, even though we're ripping the page open to see the Christmas stuff that's behind it, actually the final image that's actually on the bottom is the day shot, not the night shot. Okay, so that's one thing to keep in mind. Okay, so here the first layer we have is the day shot. The second layer we have is actually the ripped paper, which is right here. The third shot we actually have is the night shot, which is this one. And the fourth shot is the one of the fireworks. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this off so you can see Okay, so that's the order that we want to use. Now the first thing that we're going to do is try to line up the stuff as best as we can. And again, try to visualize what you want to do as your final product. Like for example, I know that the ribbon paper, which is here, so I want to try to align it where it's on the intersecting points, not so much down here, because notice that I put where the paper is broken on the bottom, so that helps that I don't have to line it up perfectly. If I would put it on the top, it makes it a little difficult because then the bottom has to be like somewhat spot perfect. Now I put this in a way that the rip on the paper is the one that is the really thin line on the top, which is the sky, because the sky is always easy to align. And if not, I can always Photoshop stuff out. Okay, so here is my image, which is the rip paper. We're going to select what we want to show on top of the image. Like for example, I don't want to show this whole image on top of my on top of the day one, because what's going to happen, all this is going to be covered. So the way that I do that, I select my my quick selection tool, which is the W, and just clicking here on any of the black spots of the image, you'll see that I'll automatically highlight all the black area. Now make sure when you look for these images online is that you look for one that has a black color on the part that it's going to be the rip, because it helps to do stuff like this. Okay, and then I'm going to actually include what is the ripped part of the paper, which is here, just slightly going over it. Okay, there we go. So now I only have selected the black area as well as the ripped part. I'm going to go ahead and do copy, and on my other image I'm going to do paste, and this is where we drop this image on top of the day image. Now obviously you see it's black, and now we want to let's put something behind it because we want to make the effect that it's coming out, right? So going back to the original image, which is here, or actually we can even use this image. We are going to go ahead and turn off everything else, and obviously this shows like this because there's no image there, and the only image is the one that we cut and paste, which was this one. And we're going to go ahead and select the same tool that we used, which was the quick selector tool, and we're going to select the black area. Now here is where we are not going to select the area of the paper that is ripped, because we don't want the mask to include that. We want that to show, so we're not going to select that area. We're just going to select the black area, and then once we select that, we can go ahead and save it. Let's go ahead and say select, and under save selection, let's put paper. Okay, now that we got this mask in place, we saved it just in case. We're going to go ahead right on that same layer that we have the paper on. We're going to go ahead and we're going to go to the one that's on top, which is here, which is the day one, and we're going to click the mask button. Okay, so what you're going to see, what's going to happen is that the marching ants is showing what is that we are going to mask, and we're going to hit this little button down here, which is the masking button. Hit that, bam, there you go. Okay, so we got the image now showing the Christmas stuff in the back. Now if I go ahead and turn on my bottom image, you'll see that it now has the castle lit in the back, actually the castle during the nighttime, and we got the day one on the bottom. Pretty cool, right? Now the third image that we're going to be putting in there is the one with the fireworks. Now sadly, when I took that photo, I was not taking it from the end of the street, so you can see I got no street here on to be able to merge into these photos. So that is why I'm using the other photo, which is the night shot, which is this one. Okay, so here the same thing, we just need to line it up in a certain way that it looks nice. And we can, if you want to, come here and turn off this, actually disable the mask, and that way we can somewhat play with the image here. And if you come here to this, we select the image that we're working on, and we hit Control T, you can actually see that there's dots around, and you can actually move this and basically somewhat try to match it up as much as possible. Now this part is a little tricky, and again, just try to put that the part that's being shown through the rip is what you try to align. Don't focus too much on everything being perfectly aligned, because it's pretty hard to think that you have to go back and shoot the exact same location. Okay, okay, so once that's done, you can see I've already aligned this. I spend a good 5 or 10 minutes aligning it, and there's a couple of tools you can use. Besides using the Control T, you know that if you go to these edges, you can make stuff bigger, smaller, and even using the keyboard, if I use the arrow keys, it moves it dot by dot, so you can somewhat fine-tune how the castle mixes with the image before. Now again, I'm gonna switch this to normal, which is how it really is. So when you copy and paste the image, it's going to come up as normal, but it's okay to come here into your opacity and bring it down, and that way you can see what's happening. Now obviously once I got this perfectly aligned, you can see that it looks horrible because the black of the night doesn't really match with the blue hour on the street. So I'm going to go ahead and select my blending mode to lighten, and what lighten does, it will only show the lightest color of the palette compared to what's underneath it. So in this case, it's going to make the white lights only, and what is the dark sky is going to disappear because the blue color of the blue hour is actually brighter than the dark color of the night. So you can see here, now we have our castle with the fireworks on top of it, and it's nighttime. So again, if I go ahead and turn on any of my other layers here, let's go ahead and turn up my ripped paper here, and I'm going to enable this mask. Okay, there we go, and I'm going to turn on the back one, and there we go, there we got our image. Okay, so cleanup here, a couple things that we can do for cleanup. As you can see, the lighted castle is not perfectly lined up. As you can see, there are some spots here that are visible, and it's pretty easy to fix. What we're going to do, we're actually going to erase some of the castle. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the lights, the lights here. We're going to erase some of it. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to select my brush tool, letter B, and if I move my mouse over the area that I want to paint, you'll see that if I move my mouse, and it's going to show the color that's underneath it. So I want to get something that's really close to the castle, like here. That way it's going to select my foreground color to whatever is underneath the ink dropper. So now if I go ahead and turn on the lit castle and I click, I need to make sure that I'm clicking on the night castle, the one that I'm erasing, and I'm going to be painting over it. So I'm painting on this layer, not the one of the castle. So what's going to happen is that the castle is going to start to disappear, and I'm just going to fine tune certain areas. I'm not going to disappear the whole thing, because since we have a night sky that somewhat goes to bright to darker, we don't want to start deleting stuff, because what's going to happen, the colors are going to look a little off. So I'm just going to look for a couple spots here, and that I think that are overlapping. Okay, here, I'm going to delete that. I delete this on the corner here. That actually looks bad because it's a different color. So I want to put my eyedropper right next to it, and that way it has a similar color. Same thing over here. I'm going to press the Alt key for the eyedropper to show up, and then pressing the left mouse, it's going to show me the color that's underneath it. I want to pick something that's really close to it, and then that way when I do the brush right over it, it disappears. Okay, here's another one right here on the top of the castle, really close, and I'm just going to tap right here. And there's another one literally right here on the tip. I'm going to erase this also. And there we go. Oh, I see one right here on the left as well. On the right side, I'm sorry. And I'm just going to delete that as well. Okay, there we go, guys. There you have your image of Cinderella's Castle, Frozen Wish happening on an empty street on Magic Kingdom on 3 different years, which is pretty crazy. And that's it. Okay, guys. So hopefully this answers your question of how I did this photo. Hopefully you can use the process that I did for your type of photos if you want to try to experiment with this. Okay guys, so that's it here from headquarters, Disney Nuts headquarters. My name is Disney Nuts, and I do Disney photography as well as Photoshop videos like this, and I do food reviews with my wife, and we visit other locations around Central Florida. So I always post one video of photography and one of food places or other stuff related to theme parks. And if you like what you saw and you want to see more, feel free to hit that subscribe button and click the bell to get notified. Until then guys, stay awesome. See ya.